Amara Blake was no stranger to whispers. At 23, she had grown accustomed to the sidelong glances and hushed voices that followed her through the quiet streets of Willow Creek. Her wheelchair, a constant companion since a car accident at 16 stole her ability to walk, drew attention she neither sought nor welcomed. But Amara was not defined by her disability. She was a painter, a dreamer, a soul with a heart as vast as the canvases she filled with vibrant colors. Her eyes, a deep hazel that sparkled with resilience, told a story of courage, even if the world sometimes refused to see it. In her small town, Amara's life was simple but fulfilling. She ran an online art shop, her delicate brushstrokes turning pain into beauty. Her best friend, Lila, was her rock, a bubbly, fiercely loyal soul who saw Amara's strength when others saw only her chair. But not everyone in Willow Creek was kind. A group of local college students, led by a cruel prankster named Kyle, thrived on causing trouble. To them, Amara was an easy target. One crisp autumn evening, Lila burst into Amara's cozy apartment, her face alight with excitement. "Amara, you won't believe this. I signed you up for a blind date," she squealed, waving her phone. "There's this new dating app, and I found the perfect guy for you. He's sweet, funny, and totally your type." Amara laughed, brushing a lock of chestnut hair from her face. "Lila, you know I'm not into dating. Besides, who's going to want?" She trailed off, gesturing to her wheelchair. Her voice carried a hint of the insecurity she tried so hard to bury. "Stop that," Lila scolded gently. "You're Amara freaking Blake. Any guy would be lucky to know you. Trust me, this guy's different. His name's Ethan, and he's dying to meet you tomorrow at the Rustic Cafe." Amara hesitated. Dating had always felt like a door closed to her, but Lila's enthusiasm was infectious. Against her better judgment, she agreed. "Fine, one coffee, but if he's a creep, you owe me a week's worth of lattes." The next evening, Amara arrived at the Rustic Cafe, her heart pounding. She wore a soft blue dress that complemented her eyes, her hair cascading in loose waves. The cafe was warm and inviting, with fairy lights strung across the ceiling and the scent of fresh coffee in the air. She scanned the room, searching for a man who might be Ethan. But as minutes ticked by, no one approached. Instead, she noticed Kyle and his friends at a corner table, snickering and pointing. Her stomach sank. She wheeled closer to their table, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "What's so funny, Kyle?" Kyle smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Oh, nothing, Amara. Just waiting to see how long you'll sit there for your big date." His friends burst into laughter, and one of them, a girl named Tara, chimed in, "Ethan's not real, sweetie. We made him up. Thought it'd be hilarious to see you get all dressed up for nothing." The words hit Amara like a punch. Her cheeks burned, and the cafe seemed to spin. She wanted to disappear, to wheel away and never face the world again. But before she could move, a deep, calm voice cut through the noise. As this seat taken, Amara turned to see a man standing beside her table. He was tall, with kind brown eyes and dark hair streaked with hints of gray. His tailored suit suggested success, but his warm smile spoke of something deeper, compassion. He carried himself with quiet confidence, yet there was a loneliness in his gaze that mirrored her own. No, it's not taken," Amara stammered, confused. Kyle and his friends fell silent, their smug grins faltering. The man sat across from her, extending a hand. "I'm Julian Carter. I couldn't help but overhear what just happened, and I'd like to have coffee with you, if that's okay." Amara blinked, her guard up. "You don't have to do this. I don't need pity." Julian's smile softened. "This isn't pity. I was here for a meeting, but it got cancelled. And honestly, you look like someone worth getting to know." Something in his tone, genuine, unguarded, made Amara pause. She nodded, and Julian signaled the waiter for 2 coffees. As they talked, Amara learned that Julian was the CEO of a tech company in the city, a widower raising his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, alone. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, and since then, he'd poured himself into work, leaving little room for connection. Yet, sitting across from Amara, he felt a spark he hadn't known in years. Amara, too, found herself opening up. She told him about her art, her accident, and the dreams she still held close despite the world's cruelty. Julian listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. When she mentioned the prank, her voice wavered, but Julian reached across the table, his hand resting lightly on hers. "Those kids," he said softly, "they don't see you. But I do. And you're extraordinary." The cafe faded away, and for the first time in years, Amara felt truly seen. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, stretching late into the evening. By the time they parted ways, Amara's heart was lighter than it had been in years. Julian asked for her number, and she gave it to him, a shy smile playing on her lips. Over the next few weeks, Julian and Amara grew closer. He invited her to his company's art gala, where her paintings were displayed after he secretly purchased several for the event. Amara was stunned to see her work celebrated, and even more touched when Sophie, Julian's daughter, ran up to her, eyes wide with awe. "You made these. They're like magic," the little girl exclaimed, hugging Amara tightly. Sophie's warmth melted Amara's defenses. She and Julian began spending more time together, often with Sophie in tow. They visited museums, had picnics by the lake, and laughed over Sophie's endless questions about Amara's art. Julian admired Amara's strength, but it was her vulnerability, her willingness to keep dreaming despite her pain, that captivated him. Meanwhile, Kyle and his friends faced consequences. Julian, with his influence, ensured the college investigated the prank. Kyle was suspended, and the group issued a public apology. But Amara didn't dwell on their cruelty. She had found something far more powerful: love. One evening, 6 months after their first meeting, Julian invited Amara to his home for dinner. The house was warm and filled with Sophie's laughter as she helped set the table. After dinner, Julian led Amara to the garden, where fairy lights twinkled like stars. Sophie, giggling, handed Amara a small canvas. On it was a painting of two figures, a woman in a wheelchair and a man holding her hand, surrounded by vibrant colors. "Sophie and I made this for you," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. "Amara, you've brought color back into my life. Into our lives. I was lost before I met you, but now, I can't imagine a future without you." Amara's eyes filled with tears as Julian knelt beside her chair. "I don't have a ring yet," he said, smiling sheepishly, "but I have a promise. I promise to love you, to stand by you, and to remind you every day how incredible you are. Will you be part of our family?" Sophie bounced excitedly, chanting, "Say yes. Say yes." Amara laughed through her tears, her heart swelling. "Yes," she whispered, and Julian pulled her into a gentle embrace, Sophie wrapping her arms around them both. The town of Willow Creek would later talk about Amara Blake not as the girl in the wheelchair, but as the artist whose love story inspired them all. Her paintings, now displayed across the city, told stories of resilience, hope, and the beauty of being seen. And every night, as she fell asleep beside Julian, with Sophie's drawings taped to their walls, Amara knew she had found her place in the world, not in spite of her scars, but because of them.